It's the Iron Bowl, and it's always intense. But with Alabama coming off an inexplicable loss and Auburn pulling off a magical four overtime win, this one feels even bigger. So, here to help us break down this big game, we've got Nathan King from Auburn Undercover and Mike Rodak from Bama 24/7. Let's remind the people what's happened in past Iron Bowls. It's the 89th version of this rivalry with Alabama ahead in the overall. Auburn looking for its first win in T-Town since 2010. And speaking of a long time ago, 2007 was the last time Alabama did what they've done this season, which is losing two games versus unranked opponents. But you win this game and all that goes out the window, right? I laid out what each team is coming into this game with. We'll call it baggage, if you will. So what is the mindset of these teams right now headed into the Iron Bowl? And Nathan, you just started with the Tigers. How are they feeling?
Sure. I mean, elated to finally get a victory this season against the quality opponent. It's just been a year of what ifs for them. Obviously, they hoped for improvement in year two under Hugh Freeze. It was pretty clear that win-loss wise they weren't going to have it. Obviously, when you look at this offense stats wise, they've actually been pretty decent with Peyton Thorne at quarterback again this season. But in terms of wins and losses, of course, it's been downhill. It's not been what they expected. They finally get an opportunity to get over the hump, if you will, against number 15 Texas A&M. It ends up being their first ranked win as a program since 2021. So they're going to the Iron Bowl, look for the second straight week, trying to play spoiler. Of course, they probably have knocked Texas A&M out of playoff contention with that victory, pushing them obviously back in the SEC title race. Alabama didn't do itself any favors, but Auburn can play spoiler again in the Iron Bowl this week. And Auburn needs bowl eligibility. This is a game where they're going in with 5 wins on the season. It seemed like a long shot earlier in the year, and obviously they haven't had a lot of success in Tuscaloosa. But boy, just talking with players on Monday, it was clear how confident they are and kind of looking forward to playing that underdog role against a Bama team that obviously has been inconsistent this season.
And for Alabama, we'll have to see as the week goes on. Monday is their off day, and so they'll get to work on Tuesday, and they'll see where they're at. I mean, this is a team that even when they've lost games, the Vanderbilt, Tennessee, now Oklahoma, all the players, Kalen DeBoer, always say that they had a great week of practice, that their minds were in the right place, and then they get to Saturday and they just don't execute. So it might be a lot of the same this week where, this team is the right attitude. They have the right attitude. They have the right approach. They're still keeping their head in it. And this team still, has a mathematical shot at the playoff. I think it's a pretty unrealistic chance right now, just with the way that they played against Oklahoma, but they can still sell that. The coaches can sell that to players. But again, at the end of the day, what matters is how they come out on Saturday, because they keep saying, we are doing the right things. We're preparing the right way. And then when we actually see them play, that has not always been the case. So we'll just have to wait and see until Saturday.
It's got to be frustrating from a coach's standpoint. You feel really good all week long, and then you're still not quite sure what you're going to get. But I think that's not uncommon in college football. Let's talk about matchups here. The Alabama offense versus the Auburn defense. Mike, I want to discuss specifically a tight offense that could not manage to find the end zone last week. So what is going on with the quarterback situation specifically coming off that loss?
Yeah, we saw a lot of the shortcomings of Jalen Milroe really throughout the month of October. And that Tennessee game in particular, relying on him to pass the ball, that did not go well. And they were able to hide some of that, against LSU. I think this team, when it's able to take an early lead, when Jalen Milroe is able to run the ball a little bit more, they're in a much better spot. In this particular case, that didn't happen. Alabama fell behind really early to Oklahoma, and then they had to throw the ball, and Jalen Milroe had the back-to-back interceptions in the third quarter, and that's when they were really in a tough spot, because that's just not how their offense is built. That's not what Jalen Milroe's strengths are. He's not a top-level passer. I think we can see that at this point in his career. So, he kind of is what he is. This is his fourth year. He's a redshirt junior. We all know his ability with his legs. But the passing ability still has not come along for him. And this is a game where I think if Alabama can keep Jalen in that lane where he's able to make those plays with his legs and kind of control the game that way, then they'll be in a good spot. But as we've seen over and over again, if that doesn't happen, then bad things happen for Jalen Milroe.
And to Mike's point, I mean, so much importance on Milroe in this game. Look at the blueprint of what other teams have done this season. Auburn is obviously hoping to follow that. You look at losses for Milroe at Oklahoma and at Tennessee in particular, held to 18 combined rushing yards in those games, kind of limiting his effectiveness. For Auburn, it's about deploying what they hope is a secret weapon going in there as a quarterback spy. Freshman linebacker DeMarcus Riddick was somebody that was certainly in the news on Monday with some quotes, not lacking confidence going into his first Iron Bowl. He said, quote, "I will not lose to Bama while I'm here." And then talk about Jalen Milroe, he said he's fast, but he's not faster than me. He's a guy that first-year defensive coordinator DJ Durkin has put on these mobile quarterbacks. Auburn has a lot of experience going against these types of players. You see Michael Hawkins right there on your screen. That was the first game for Riddick where they really started to use him in that role, and he started to shine. Marcel Reed was obviously an example of that. Auburn got burned here and there, but obviously were able to make enough plays to remain in that game. They believe that they have the secondary and have the defense to be able to hold up against Jalen Milroe when he tries to throw the ball downfield. Texas A&M was able to run the ball a little bit, though, to get the run game going. Obviously, Auburn has to avoid that, or else they've got a lot of players. Yeah, they're playing a lot of freshmen, but at the end of the day, they are freshmen. If you're putting them in a full four-quarter game against Milroe and his legs trying to keep up with that, it probably won't bode well for them.
Love the confidence. This is when we get the really good quotes ahead of these rivalry games. Let's talk about the other side of things. Auburn offense versus the Alabama defense. It really feels like maybe it's coming together for the Tigers this late in the season. Nathan, what have you seen?
I mean, again, like we talked about earlier, statistically, it has been there, but you talk about one of the most important things in football, finishing drives and finishing games. They benched quarterback Peyton Bourne early in the season after he went out and, it was an understandable benching 5 interceptions against Cal, really ever since he's been reinserted into that starting lineup. It's been decent for him in his second year. His numbers are actually a lot better, but really over the past 2 games for them now, it's a small sample size, Louisiana Monroe and Texas A&M, but they are really starting to come into their own as an offense. The receivers are a big reason why. Keandre Lambert-Smith has been a revelation for them in the transfer portal. He's one of the better receivers Auburn's had. He has a chance to be the first All-SEC receiver since 2014. And then most people know the name Cam Coleman, 5-star freshman in this 2024 class. A little up and down this season, dealt with a shoulder injury early in the year, but you are really starting to see him shine. Back-to-back 100-yard performances for both of those guys. And for Cam Coleman, look, you talked about the quotes and having the confidence. This week, he said it's a revenge tour for this Auburn team. And again, it goes into that mindset of not having anything to lose. For Auburn, it's about protecting Peyton Thornhill. He's been at his best this season. It's a good, not great offensive line when they've been able to hold up in protection. He's got some of the better talent Auburn's had in the last several seasons out at wide receiver. Will he have the time to get it to them with a pretty fearsome Alabama defensive threat, even without Deontay Lawson? I thought that Texas A&M game maybe was a nice warm-up for them because they've obviously got good players up front as well.
Yeah, and for Alabama, we saw a lot of Vanderbilt script from Oklahoma. This was a Oklahoma offense that was pretty limited in the passing game. I don't think Jackson Arnold was a player that was going to beat Alabama through the air, but guess what? He ran the ball pretty well. I think 25 times himself. Xavier Robinson had a couple touchdowns for Oklahoma, over 250 rushing yards that the Sooners had. And Alabama players said there was a lot of what Vanderbilt did to this Alabama defense back in October that the Sooners did, and that really provides the blueprint for Auburn in this game. And I think that would probably be the way that Auburn beats Alabama, is the same way that Alabama's been beaten before. And this rushing defense for Alabama is a problem. We saw that in their Tennessee loss as well with Dylan Sampson. Maybe they caught a little bit of a break with Nate Noel being out for that Missouri game that Alabama won. John Emery being out all season for LSU in that game that Alabama won as well. And then, when you start playing some good running backs with Jarquez Hunter, certainly in that category, I think there's some serious questions about this run defense. And add to that, Deontay Lawson, Alabama's middle linebacker, the guy who's worn the radio in his helmet all season long as the play caller. He's out for the season. He got hurt against Oklahoma, and he's done. So another problem for Alabama's defense going into this game.
The script is out on how to attack this Alabama defense, but you still have to be able to do it, even if you know what you need to do. We simulated this game 20 times on EA College Football 25, the video game, and the Tide, you're looking at them right there, they won it 15 times. So starting with Alabama, Mike, what's the biggest key to pulling out a win in the real game?
I feel like I said this last week for the Oklahoma game, and I think it probably proved to be true. He's like, you got to go out to an early lead, and you got to play the game that you're best suited to play, which for this offense, for Jalen Miller, which he's going to remain the starting quarterback, it's going to be controlling the ball with the running game, with him keeping an early lead, maintaining that early lead. And look, this game's at home for Alabama, which I think has been a good thing in the Iron Bowl. Obviously, they've had a lot of issues at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's a place that Nick Saban just said last weekend is haunted. However, given the way this team has played lately, I think if you don't take an early lead and this game gets a little bit sideways for Alabama, this home crowd does have the potential to turn on you. And I think you want to avoid that as well. So within your power, maybe even take the ball to start the game, score early, calm the nerves, and keep control of this game in the way that you did not do last week at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I really agree with the points that Mike is making there. I mean, all the way down to the opening kickoff, we've sort of learned now on Monday early in the week what Auburn's mindset is going to be for this game. Obviously, they're going to be looking to play the role of spoiler. They're not built like a Georgia. They're not, they're not built like a team that's going to be able to go down and have a comeback in this game. I don't believe. So staying confident through the first half, obviously looking to play through that energy that you had last weekend. So much of that goes into defending Jalen Williams, defending Jalen Milroe, defending Ryan Williams there. You don't want those guys cracking open a couple big touchdowns early in the game because, like Mike said, this is a game that's in Tuscaloosa. Auburn's lost the last 4 meetings in Bryant-Denny Stadium by 25 points per game on average. It's not necessarily been very competitive there. So for Auburn, you obviously want to stay in it, give yourself an opportunity in the second half, and then so much of it comes back to defense. I mean, DJ Durkin has been probably the best hire for Hugh Freeze so far in his 2 years at Auburn. He's done a good job of game planning every single week. Texas A&M was able to do some things, but really it was that bend don't break. Auburn was able to go at 21-0 in the early period of the game, early in the second quarter, because Texas A&M got down and missed the field goal. They turned it over on downs in Auburn territory. So for Auburn, keeping Alabama out of the end zone and keeping it from being a 14-point deficit there in the first half, I think would be really key for a team that, again, is just going to be trying to go out and play loose and easy, try to get some bowl eligibility here at the end of the season, try to upset their bitter rival on the road.
Watching our own tape that we were rolling there, a reminder that Iron Bowl week is also the week that Alabama fans have to continually watch the kick six over and over again. So really glad we showed it so they got to see it one more time. But that is a reminder that this rivalry gets wild. Thank you both so much for breaking it down for us. We do appreciate it. You can check out more of Nathan's work at Auburn Undercover for all things Auburn football. And then, of course, Bama 24/7 for everything you need to know about Alabama.